if we could go down the line and each of you kind of introduce yourselves. Who you are, what you do, where they can find you, that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah. Going down the line, I just registered in my head that you said that. I'm Elijah. I've been managing Overwatch teams for over a year now, and I currently work for Incendia Esports as general manager, team manager, and social media manager. And I'm non-binary. I use they, he, and I am gay. You can find me at Manager Elijah on Twitter.
Oh boy. I'm Liz. I'm a freelance esports illustrator. I've done work for various tier 1 teams like TSM, Atlanta FaZe, Los Angeles Gladiators. You can find me on Twitter at Limitless. My pronouns are any pronouns. You just ask me which I prefer at the time, but they, them is safe anytime.
Hi, I'm Mel. I'm oddly awkward on most social media platforms. I've recently won the 2020 Overwatch League Ultimate Fan Contest. I work with Avast and Solomon on his companion streams during Owl, and I also make art for, Owl. Certain Owl teams like Mayhem. I made their on the mic art, Twitch emotes for many players, and one analyst. One single analyst. That's it. Yeah. My pronouns are they, them.
So yeah, we'll just start off with something easy. How did you, if you have, I don't know if this applies to too many people in here, but if you have changed your name kind of IRL, what caused you to pick it? If you haven't, then kind of how did you go about choosing the name that you go by online?
I originally was called a different name, IRL and in-game. Not my birth name, another name. But it was just a nickname from my dad, and I realized that I kind of chose it more out of convenience rather than actually liking it. And so I went through a period of time where I really hated my name, but I didn't have another one. But then I got addicted to a game called Detroit Become Human, and there's a character called Elijah Kamsky, and not even that I particularly like the character, I was just like, Elijah, that's a cool name, that's mine now. And so I took it for IRL and in game because I really like being called by name, so I wouldn't choose a random username over it.
That's really cool, actually. It's a cool origin story. The fact that you have an origin story, basically.
My lord.
Mine isn't as amazing. It's just a shortened version of my real name. My real name is Elizabeth, and it just got shortened down to Liz, which is ironic because as a kid, I absolutely hated being called nicknames, yet here I am as an adult being called a nickname my entire life.
A shortened version of my name. It's basically become like a dead name at this point. Like, I don't like people calling my full name because it's such a mouthful at this point. Like, just
yeah,
call me Mel.
I would say the same about mine too.
So yeah,
3-letter names.
My old one was a 3-letter name, and a lot of people call me Eli, so I'm an honorary member of this club.
There you go.
3-letter names.
And being trans, name a more iconic duo. I'll wait.
For real, though?
Okay. Have certain kind of games or esports scenes been particularly meaningful? I know kind of all of us are to at least some degree involved in Overwatch. But, you know, it can be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be this particular one.
Well, for me, my very first esport was actually Team Fortress 2, and that's how I got started. I worked with some professional TF2 teams. I worked with some streamers and stuff. And that's kind of just how I got my start. And then once a bunch of TF2 players started moving over to Overwatch, I kind of moved over too. But like that game kind of started everything for me.
For me, Owl was my first esport. I knew about League of Legends, but I didn't know like it to an extent where like I'm, you know, it's meaningful to me per se. But I got into Overwatch esports during winter premiere, which was after World Cup 2016. So I got into it kind of late for that, but I liked Renegades as a team with Man of Snow, but then I also liked Team Liquid, so it was like I'm gonna root for them. And then yeah, I that's basically it. I kind of like Maple Story, but that's really my extent of esports knowledge.
Is there esports Maple Story?
Is there?
Well, I mean, it's
Or did you mean it more as just a game that's significant
just like a
to
game
you?
that's meaningful.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, Overwatch was my entry into esports, and I plan to stay in Overwatch until I get to contenders as a team manager. But Overwatch has kind of opened my eyes to how much I like esports as a whole. So I definitely would move on to other games afterwards.
Very cool. So I don't, and this is kind of a question that may or may not apply to you. Each of you collective. Did being trans or non-binary have any impact positively or negatively on your decision to go into your chosen field?
For me specifically, I didn't come out and I didn't transition until after I had already started. So if anything, it helped kind of show me the ropes and reassure my feelings and stuff. Specifically Mel themselves has really helped me out a lot.
Same for me. I didn't like come out until like after like being in the scene. It's just like a little fumble of like going by they she, and I was slowly drifting away from that. Like it didn't sit right with me, so I was like, let's just try out they them and see how that goes, because I've been liking like the thought of people calling me they. Like that's what I want. I don't want to feel uncomfortable with people being with say telling me she, and I'm like, no, that's not me. Let's not. Yeah.
For me, I've known I'm not cis since I was 11, so I went into esports having transitioned already.
Mm.
Not medically, but socially. And so I have always feared gaming spaces, especially because of my voice. It's pretty easy to say that I sound like a girl. So I don't really tend to go into like public voice channels. I don't join chat in games. So I do still worry in new environments. But clearly it didn't stop me from going into it, and I don't tolerate like people treating me differently because of it. So
Yeah, I have the same thing about like, since I have more of a feminine voice, it's like easy for people to be like, "Oh, that's a female." Like,
it's
no.
also just like, if I'm in a comp game, I'm not going to correct people in my pronouns. I'd rather just avoid the interaction altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it becomes a whole thing.
But at the same time, I don't want that to happen. Like, I want people to like change, but it's not gonna happen that easy. But it is like something you can, take steps into. At
It's one of
least.
those,
For sure.
if you're willing to like go through the steps and deal with it at the moment, it's probably
Yeah.
better to do that. But if you have the energy to do it, that's a different story.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah. Are there major differences? And again, this particular question may apply in kind of different ways to each of you, because I know Elijah, you work more on like team management. Liz, you're in illustration. Are there major differences between your experiences in like behind the scenes work or more on camera or public facing kind of work?
For me specifically, when I work with teams, a lot of the teams that I work with, we just work in like a Discord group chat. I just kind of get called she all the time, and I don't know, my gender is just never brought up or considered. And even publicly, for example, we'll take the Atlanta phase work that I've done, then they would credit back to me. I was always referred to as she, and like my pronouns are right there in my bio. No one's ever took them into consideration. So I've been included in all women groups with certain other teams, and it's not ever considered at all.
For me, working with Avast and everyone on the companion stream, they know my pronouns, especially when chat is like, Mel, why people happy? Sometimes people are like, who's the girl on stream? And I'm thankful for, having a community around the companion stream where people will correct that person. And that's really like uplifting or something. I don't know. Like I'm really thankful. Yeah, reassuring. Because people are willing to correct people.
I was gonna say, I think that would be reassuring even just as a viewer to know that like the person you're watching cares enough to correct that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For me, I haven't done anything public facing whatsoever before. But in the future, LANs are gonna come back, and that's gonna be a thing. So that's definitely gonna to be something that I adapt to, because it's a lot more awkward to correct somebody face to face. I imagine I'll probably get like a pronoun pin or something, and I'll make sure there's people around me that can support me, but it will definitely be a learning experience.
Yeah. Thankfully, I commissioned Liz for a pronoun pin, so
if you ever want one, let me know. I'll gladly make you one.
Thank you.
I'm so ready for LANs.
I'm excited.
I think everybody is.
Yeah.
Do you prefer one over the other as far as kind of being in the background or kind of being a little more in the open, I guess?
I'd say I like being more behind the scenes because I get to like be in call with Solomon, who I work with, and with the companion streams, because like I don't really have to, say words on stream, I guess, because I'd like to just be quiet and press some buttons here and there. It's much more fun to like have a person with you than be in a group full of like people who actually commentate on the games. Yeah.
I used to be very timid when it came to having a very public-facing like persona, but the more work that I'm doing, and the more I'm improving, I guess the more my name kind of gets out there, I'm kind of more okay with being a public face. Plus, I want people to know that like you can still succeed, you can go places and be non-binary, it's okay. Like, I don't know. I'm totally cool with being public and being an example.
For me, I've just never done it, frankly. So I can't really answer that.
That's fair.
Hmm.
Do you present yourself differently to people that you're kind of familiar with and you already have like a working relation with versus kind of new areas? I know Elijah talked a little bit about this. We'll go down the line. Elijah, do you want to start?
So I feel like I've already kind of half answered this, but I will add on specifically that I avoid like saying that I'm non-binary. I usually correct it just saying that I'm a guy or that I use he because it's a lot simpler. It invites a lot less questions. So that's definitely one thing that I like. I'm more particular about when it's more in private.
Hmm.
I tend to just I'm pretty much the same all over the place. Everybody knows me as that one gender fluid person. I have friends that will consistently ask me which I prefer every day. The way I get treated is different, but the way that I present is the same everywhere.
I don't think I'm different with teams or with like a general like. I think I'm always just non-binary. I put they them in my emails. Like I always introduce myself as they them anywhere I can, really.
Putting your pronouns in your email is actually a really smart idea. I'm gonna take that.
For me, being a manager, I have a lot of like split-second interactions with people. So like, there's somebody that's coming into ring for a scrim. Like they're literally just gonna play with us once, and that's it. And they call me a she, and I have to just be like, actually, I'm a dude, and then I just move on because I can't do any more than that. I can't be like, I use he and they and blah blah blah. I have to just go, I'm a dude actually, and then we just completely move on. And there's no opportunity to really like to go any further than that. So
Yeah.
out of the sake of convenience.
Makes sense. I think we've already touched on the sub question. So, have you faced any professional discrimination, and has it affected what kind of jobs you take or look for? I know this can be kind of a weird one.
I think Liz and Mel are doing a very large think, so I can answer first if you want.
Yeah.
So I haven't been denied opportunities that I know of. I mean, would you know? But I've definitely been like called slurs, purposefully misgendered, had people acting as though calling me the right pronouns is unreasonable, or me questioning them is some kind of affront to them, or like I'm insulting them. Arguing with me about my identity because I work one-on-one with the gamer bros 24/7. That's my day job, so I have to deal with cishet people who've probably never actually interacted in like one-on-one with a trans person. So it's definitely something that I'm used to experiencing. And when I try out with teams that I'm new to, that's something that I have to keep in mind is like testing how they receive me. So it does affect what kind of jobs I take for sure.
I think for me, I have received various insults. I've gotten threats. Whenever any of the work that I've done gets posted publicly on like a tier 1 team Twitter account or something, like I'll refer to the Atlanta phase work that I did. I did like all their match graphics and stuff. And I've had fans of the team or people who just found me through the team send me DMs about like calling me slurs, making fun of my pronouns, telling me that I didn't belong in the community, or just kind of ridiculous things. I had someone that just said, "Nice pronouns. Did you pick them out yourself?" Like, yeah. But these are the kinds of things that I encounter. It's not the teams themselves' fault. It's not it's just it's the team's fan base, I guess. It's also Call of Duty, so
I still feel like to an extent that is the responsibility of the org that they aren't making any kind of statement against that kind of behavior.
True. I've never had any professional organization stand up for me or anything like that when it comes to those things.
I think the only like professional discrimination is just like being misgendered. I haven't gotten to the extent, and I'm fortunate to like not have like hateful DMs or anything like that sent to me. Because people are more or like more respectful towards me, which is really cool. I don't know. But I'm they're not there for like my identity, like, oh, they're non-binary, let's go commission them. It's more of like what I can offer in terms of art or production stuff. So that's pretty cool. There are people who can support you because you're you and not because of who you are. I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Can I follow up on like the sub question that's on this question? So, it kind of affects like specifically like the hate discrimination that I get from randos or whatever. I've kind of learned to deal with it. It's a sad reality that I've had to encounter so much hate directly like sent to me, but I've just had to learn how to deal with it, move on, ignore it. I don't want that to be like a big thing of my job. I'm here to draw things. Like having to deal with all this stuff shouldn't be a part of my job, but it is, sadly.
Yeah, I do feel that too. That is something that I have to keep in mind with every new person that joins like a voice chat with my team ever. Is that I have to be like, oh, I'm ready to correct this person if I need to, kind of thing.
It's like, oh boy, here we go again.
Yeah, it sucks that it's something that you have to keep in mind 24/7 when it doesn't feel like it should matter that much to other people.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even though I'm not the one being interviewed.
But
I mean,
you're
I'm sure you
relevant
can
in
relate
this
to plenty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure you can relate to loads.
Did you? How can cis people best support trans people in gaming spaces? I know this has kind of come up a little bit, but like, with people like correcting and stuff, but, either, what could be the bare minimum? What could people be looking to do better, etc.
Just respect us and our pronouns. We are people as well. It's really not that hard.
Honestly.
It's
Definitely the bare minimum.
that is the bare minimum, respecting our pronouns. That's
Also, like, don't make it a huge deal. Like, oh, if somebody like corrects you about our pronouns, just say okay and move on. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do this, I'll never do it again. Like,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say
just
too.
correct yourself and move on. Like, it's okay. You don't.
I'll add on to
It's
the
not a big deal.
I'll add on to the whole pronouns thing as well. Not making it about identity, which I said a bit earlier, but also correcting others when the person isn't around to do it themselves.
yeah.
It shouldn't just be a show that you
Yes.
put on for the trans person. It should be a respect that you give them even when they can't notice it.
Absolutely.
Especially in professional settings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I'm kind of like going off Mel's like email thing. That kind of like putting your pronouns in your email signature or whatever absolutely could totally be like a regular thing, and that would
Yeah,
change the professional. Yeah, honestly, that would change professional emails for me so much.
Nice. From your perspective, has anything changed kind of over time in the kind of gaming esports industry, either positively or negatively, relating to representation or treatment of trans people? And do you have any examples?
Well, I've been in esports for probably almost over 10 years now, if you're going all the way back to TF2. 10 years ago, trans people were not part of the community. If they were considered a laughingstock. Slurs and all kinds of things were completely normalized. Even at LAN, you had people yelling things at the top of their lungs, and people didn't think twice. Comparing that to now, there's definitely been miles and miles of improvement. There's definitely a lot more positive representation, but there's still work that needs to be done. But if we are comparing it to 10 years ago, then by all means, there has been a lot more positive things. Like, people will actively correct people's vocabulary and stuff. Yeah.
I can only speak for within the last year because I've been in esports for the last year. But I will say over that amount of time, there's been a pretty steady trickling increase of people being just aware of the fact that trans people are around them and it's something that they should be mindful of. You see a lot more people, even just simple stuff like defending others on Twitter, standing up for other people in voice chats too. I feel like that's kind of a thing that's just been happening over time more and more. Is trans people are more visible. It's more and more people will just be aware of how to respect them. And I will say there's been a pretty large increase in LGBT and women exclusive teams, which is something that I'm kind of neutral about because as much as I do like the fact that it gives them a safe space, it does feel a little alienating at the same time.
Most definitely with the whole this is an all-female team, all LGBT, but we want LGBT and women to be in the same team that a man could be in.
Right.
Especially the women and non-binary thing. I would not be allowed onto a women and non-binary team because I'm trans masculine. It's not the same. It's people that think of being non-binary as women light.
Yeah.
That really annoys
women
me.
light.
Because I know for a fact if I walked into that team, they wouldn't like it, you know?
It's one thing to have a team that's specifically made to be all women. It's another thing to have a team that coincidentally happens to be all women, just like 100%. An all male team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then representation of trans people. There's been over the past few years a couple more semi-main characters or playable characters being trans, which is really cool. Anytime that kind of thing can happen is really cool, like Bloodhound in Apex or the character in The Last of Us 2. It's cool to see. It was in the EHE Twitter post I saw. So
not women light. Yeah. Women light. I love that.
What are some examples of games, orgs, and communities that are doing this especially well? That they look out for people and go out of their way to do well. Do you have any examples that you feel comfortable sharing?
It's kind of a cliche thing that I've seen teams doing, but just teams that are pointing out LGBTQ businesses and stuff and kind of showcasing them. I feel like that's kind of a nice gesture because not only does it show that they support the community, but they're also supporting them by bringing attention and potential business to them. And it's just little things like that that can mean a lot. But I don't think it should be just exclusively during Pride Month. Just saying.
True. I can go or you can go, Mel.
You can go.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were like leading up to speaking or not.
No, it's okay.
So I have 2 examples of orgs and 1 of a game. So this Pride Month, Dead by Daylight has done kind of like a frankly incredible amount. I don't know how familiar you guys are with that game, but they've been like so many posts, in-game items, exclusive streams, like highlighting LGBT streamers within their community. It's really amazing considering what we got on Overwatch. And then I saw specifically I have kind of gripes with the concept of just like changing your profile picture to being Pride colors during Pride Month. I think it's so easy to do so much more if you're an esports org. So I will say specifically, Regen, which is an Overwatch org, was doing posts about LGBT history, like figures in LGBT history, rather than just the changing the profile picture, actually highlighting important things. And then the org that I currently work for, Incendia, my pronouns were asked before the first interview. It's very casual. It was just a routine question that they did, which is wonderful. And I've had a couple of incidents being within the org. I had a player call me a slur, and they were instantly pulled aside, like same day, directly after the scrim. The owner of the team pulled them aside and was like, "You cannot do this, like etc." So it's really nice to have an org that I feel fully like supported within, or I don't feel like me bringing up issues is an inconvenience to them.
That's fantastic, honestly. Like, that's really reassuring to hear.
The only thing I wrote was, "I'm not hired," so
Aww.
but that's fine.
That's felt too.
I don't. I've all the points were pretty much taken and said. The old Overwatch, and then with the Elo Hell Esports Twitter, I've seen the graphics that you Paddington have made. Like, they're so good. I love them.
Actual infographics, rather than just.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually unmuted my mic so I can be for this. But yeah, Noella and I are both queer people who feel really, really strongly about making sure that Elo Hell doesn't just change its profile picture. Like, we wanted to go out of our way. That's why we came out the gate swinging with our first post. I referred to it when we were writing it as nailing our thesis to the church door. And yeah, with the flag one, it's been interesting because I have received some legitimate criticism of that graphic, and I'm learning even more. Like, I used an outdated definition of bisexual, and I wasn't able to properly credit the pan creator, 2 things that I hope to, that I've now learned and I can move forward with. And I'm excited to keep doing this, and I'm really, really excited that the community has responded so well. Like, every time we go out of our way to make a really kind of, huge stance on pro-LGBT, like we did trans rights or human rights last year, and it got an amazing result, which kind of, to Elijah's point from earlier, it's cool to see the esports community is responding so well.
Have you told them about Ollie yet? Is that public yet?
No, that's next week's. For those of you who don't know, our mascot Ollie is non-binary and has been since his inception. And I'm going to be making a graphic about that next week. So, yeah. Okay, I'm done being on the panel I'm hosting. Okay, and for the last couple questions, I think we've kind of talked to this already, but if you have anything else to add, now, go ahead. What is one thing you would change to make productions more, and companies, organizers, admins, that kind of stuff, more inclusive to trans people? What would make your life easier going forward?
Honestly, a big thing would just be like normalizing asking for pronouns right at the start. Like that would change so much and make my life easier and more comfortable.
And also having like pronouns on broadcast, like it's just
Yeah,
it just
absolutely.
takes up a little bit of space. It could be done.
My thing was whenever teams do tournaments, you fill in your pronouns on production sheets, but then inevitably production never ends up using the pronouns you specify, which has been like a gripe that a lot of people have had for a long time. Like, I've heard a little bit about like why it's all they them for everyone, but it's definitely a frustration, and that's something that I'd like to see possibly change.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah. Fun fact: if this were live, we would have your pronouns displayed, and including the little flag that we would have. I mean, we still will, of course. But you know, fun fact: we have that tech, and we were going to do it. And yeah, kind of one last question: what do you wish the public knew about trans people?
Been waiting for this question.
Raring to go.
My big thing is being trans does not mean we're your human encyclopedia. Just because we're trans doesn't mean it's our job to speak for trans people all the time. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
please treat us just like other human beings. We have other interests besides just being trans. I like things other than, being me, being non-binary. Ask me about video games. Ask me about art. Ask me about soup. Like anything.
Ask me about soup. You very interested in soup, Liz?
Yes, I very much like soup.
All right then. I'm taken.
Non-binary doesn't mean androgynous.
Yes.
There's not
Yes,
one way,
absolutely.
not one single way of being non-binary. There's so many. It's an umbrella term. There's so many ways you can be it.
Absolutely.
Just in this, we have three people with three different sets of pronouns, and we all identify as non-binary. So
Yep.
That says it all, really. My thing was just we want to be treated the same as cis people, and special treatment isn't necessarily something we want either. We don't like. Kind of as Liz said, being trans isn't the thing about us. It just happens to be a small detail about our lives.
Another thing with like non-binary people, please don't refer to us as theys, like the he, she's, and theys. Like it's kind of putting us into like this third gender category, which we're not.
Especially using theides and gentle them, you're already gendering.
I would say
even theys and gays, like
even don't jump onto calling people NB, because some people don't like being called that. NB as in ENBY as an alternative to boy or girl, because it can be very infantilizing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just as simple as asking somebody what they prefer to be referred to as. What words they're comfortable with, if you're not sure. Because like 9 times out of 10, the person isn't going to be upset if you ask. If anything, they're going to be overjoyed that you cared to ask.
Yes, absolutely. Because I'm gender fluid and my preference kind of changes over time. If somebody asks me like what you're feeling or what you prefer at that time, that's so like reassuring to me because it shows that you care. Like, it means so much.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's everything I had planned. If there's anything you kind of want to say while you're here, totally welcome to. Otherwise, we can wrap up.
Nothing from me except thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, thank you. Hire me.
Hire me. I'm just kidding.
My commissions are open.
Oh my lord. It's true.
Yep, true. Yeah. Thank you for this panel.
Thank you for this opportunity.